Welcome to my new video, and today we're looking at Restoration Druids. Their tier set has been changed, very similar to what happened to Restoration Shamans. From being a pretty terrible tier set, it went to being a much better version of what the original design was. So we're going to be looking at the tier set, how it interacts with the class, how it interacts with certain stats, certain legendaries, certain covenants. We'll be looking at Mythic Plus and raids, and again, keep in mind, disclaimer before any of these videos, it's 9.2 PTR. There's going to be changes happening in the future. This is my first impression of the tier set. I might be missing certain interactions, so if you think I missed out on something, leave a comment below. I'm going to check them out and I'm going to test them. So I actually did some of the raid testing with Resto Druid, with the new tier set, with the old tier set as well, but the new tier set seems a lot better. So let's go straight into what is the new tier set. So this is my Resto Druid on PTR, and I have my combat log here just because I'm going to showcase how the tier set works and you can see it for yourself. So first of all, the tier set, 2 set, the 4 set have been changed completely from the previous versions. 2 set right now, healing from rejuvenation has a 25% chance to grant renewing bloom. Healing a certain amount over 8 seconds, Swiftman can consume renewing bloom. So straight away, the 2 set bonus is going to give you an extra hot, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it's very passive bonus. It's not super interesting, but I do feel there's a lot of class balance or class fantasy coming towards Resto Druid, who's a hot or heal over time healer, getting more heal over time effects that do seem to work with mastery, and that is the big kicker. It seems to work with mastery. So I actually have the grid 2 set up to showcase renewing bloom. Press rejuvenation. You can see it does around 711 healing, and now renewing bloom procced. And now it goes to 788. So you can see how Renewing Bloom, which is the effect right here, you can see it proc, and it's extended by the procs and things like that. You can see that the hot itself seemed to work with mastery. And this is a huge bonus. Free healing for Restoration Druid, both in Mythic Plus and raid situations. We can do it again. You saw it proc straight away, so it's gonna go straight into 780. Again, this 2 set bonus, which seems very insignificant, the true value of this bonus is going to be somewhat hidden because it does work with mastery, or at least it seems to work with mastery. And honestly, I think it's really cool. I think it is passive, but at the same time, it fits with the class fantasy of Resto Druid. Keep in mind, it does not seem to extend. Again, you can see it's 710. I'm healing 711. This is what my rejuvenation usually does. We're waiting for the proc. Again, the proc seems to be, you have a 25% chance, so it might not always proc, but it's depending on the choice. You can see for the duration. Okay, it procced at the very end. So you can use rejuvenation again, 788. Now if I press flourish, it doesn't extend the actual hot. It doesn't extend renewing bloom hot, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm not sure if it's supposed to, if it's a bug. Again, it's early days in PTR, so that's something to consider. So the 4 set bonus. Every 3 cast of Swiftmend grants you Incarnation Tree of Life for 9 seconds. 9 seconds is a pretty long time, because in 9 seconds you can fit in something like Convoke the Spirits if you're running the Convoke or the Night Phase specific legendary, which you probably will in raid situations because it's just so strong. So every 3 Swiftmends, and this is going to be somewhat hard to showcase, but every time you're going to use Swiftmend, you're going to get a permanent buff. And you can see it here right now. I have a weak warrior that showcases it. So now I have 1 stack. Every 3 Swiftmends, you're going to get Tree of Life. Straight away, there's going to be a huge, how do I say it, interaction, combinations with certain talents. I'm going to be using Soul the Forest here just to showcase the fact that my next Swiftmend is going to proc Tree of Life. You have to remember that with Tree of Life, a lot of your abilities are going to be severely empowered. So you'll notice that, again, we have to go to a Restoration Druid. If you have Tree of Life, your rejuvenation is going to heal 50% more and cost 30% less mana, and your Wild Growth is going to affect 2 additional targets. So you know that Tree of Life has a lot on top of the fact that it's going to increase your healing. So what I'm trying to do here, and I think a lot of people are going to try this out in raids, in the raid testing and things like that. Soul the Forest, you're going to use Swiftmend, you have 2 stacks, you're going to get 3rd stacks, you're going to get a Tree of Life, and then after that, you're going to have your Soul the Forest buff. You're going to have your Soul the Forest buff in Tree of Life, and you cast Wild Growth. That kind of combination, I feel, is going to be extremely strong in terms of burst AoE healing potential. So we put rejuvenation because we need to use Swiftmend. We use Swiftmend, we're in Tree of Life, we cast, you can see our Soul the Forest buff right here, and we cast our Wild Growth. And then probably afterwards, you probably want to get as many rejuvenations out as possible, because rejuvenation costs 30% less mana at that given point, and you have 9 seconds overall. So you really want to optimize those 9 seconds. Now, field crafting wise, What if you have the 3 stacks and you're in Tree of Life and then you use Convoke for additional healing? You have to remember, and this is something that I've tested before, Convoke with Soul of the Forest, and this is something that if you're playing Resto Druid right now in Shadowlands, you're probably aware of this, but with Convoke and Soul of the Forest, you are going to be proccing Swiftmans or Soul of the Forest. You saw my Soul of the Forest buff right there. Convoke procs Soul of the Forest. So imagine using this during Tree of Life, and it's just going to be an insane amount of burst healing. Again, when I say Tree of Life, I mean the Tree of Life 4-set proc. And this is something that just I'm field crafting. I'm not sure what the best combinations are going to be in terms of trying to optimize. You know, you have a lot of cooldowns as a Resto Druid. You have your Convokes, you have your Tranquility, you have Tree of Life if you do end up going with Tree of Life. You have Flourish. There's a lot of things, a lot of chains you can do, but straight away I can see synergy between Soul of the Forest, I can see synergy between the 4-set bonus. Unfortunately, from what I've just shown you, Convoke Swiftmans do not seem to proc the 4-set bonus. And that's something very interesting because every 3 casts of Swiftman grants Synchronization. So I'm using Convoke, there is a Swiftman there, there's a Soul of the Forest buff. You can see Swiftman was cast, and no buff for the 4-set. So that's something to consider and very interesting. So how is this going to affect Resto Druids in raids and Mythic Plus? I feel any Resto Druid running raids is going to pick up this 4-set as soon as possible. I feel the pure, again, providing an estimate of the HPS gain from this 2-set and 4-set bonus is relatively hard because the only thing that you can see on your details meters is going to be the 2-set bonus. And the 2-set bonus, the pure healing, is misleading because it provides mastery, or it works with mastery, which means that it's going to buff a lot of your auto HUDs. So all of a sudden, calculating the pure throughput of this bonus is relatively hard, and it is hidden, but believe me, it is, or at least it seems very, very good at this given point. So not only your 2-set bonus is working with mastery, not only the 4-set bonus you can control with Swiftman procs, and when you proc Tree of Life, you can do a lot of different things like running Soul of the Forest, using Wild Growth, maybe using Convoke if you do want that really juicy Convoke. And the pure uptime of Tree of Life during raid situations is going to be really, really high. So I have to say, in raid situations, I think Resto Druids are going to like this bonus. Now in Mythic Plus. In Mythic Plus, it's a completely different beast. You don't really look for pure HPS bonuses. They do help, but you do want something else. And I feel like Resto Druid 4-set bonus is probably going to be something that is going to be ignored in Mythic Plus because every 3 casts of Swiftman, you're going to go into Tree of Life. But a lot of the times you might not hold Swiftman. If someone is about to die, you want to use Swiftman to heal them up, and you might get Tree of Life, and there's nothing to heal in Mythic Plus. There's nothing to do, and you much rather be in your Feral Affinity doing damage. So that's something to consider. I don't think the 4-set bonus is going to be as impactful as it is in raids. In Mythic Plus is going to be something, we'll see, but the 2-set bonus guaranteed every Resto Druid is going to pick up the 2-set bonus. It is free healing. It does not change your playstyle. You just press Rejuvenation on targets. It's going to proc this hot that's going to work with your mastery and provide additional healing. On top of the fact, if you look at the last 2 seasonal affixes like Prideful, Tormented and things like that, there's always going to be, or at least Blizzard always seems to add, an aspect of seasonal affix that requires healers to pump healing. I do think that the 2-set bonus is going to have impact in Mythic Plus because, again, I said this multiple times, it is free healing, it does not change the way you play. The 4-set bonus, we'll see if people are going to be super excited in Mythic Plus. I don't think they're going to be super excited, but maybe they're going to pick it up regardless because if you can kind of play around the Swiftmans, it's going to give you a Tree of Life, which maybe will bypass the seasonal affix. Again, we have no idea what the seasonal affix is going to be, and on PTR you still cannot test double legendaries, which is a big yikes. So my summary of the tier set bonus so far, of what we learned, it works with mastery, the 2-set works with mastery, so free healing. The 4-set bonus, every 3 Swiftman cast gives you Tree of Life. Tree of Life can be used to have really strong rejuvenations that are gonna heal for more and cost less, which is the big advantage here because you only have a 9-second window to really try out your heals. I think Soul of the Forest works really well with the 4-set bonus, especially with the fact that you go into Tree of Life and you have Soul of the Forest buff that you can cast Wild Growth, which is going to provide a lot of burst healing at that given moment. So there is a lot of things to be excited about this bonus in raid situations. In Mythic Plus, I would have liked a bonus that would provide additional damage, but I know a lot of healers or a lot of the tier set bonus seem to be aimed towards HPS or raid performance. So let's talk about Legendaries and Covenants and the initial impression that I get on PTR. Again, straight away, if you're playing Resto Druid in raid situations, you're playing Night Fae, you're most likely playing Celestial Spirits, which is basically the Convoke Legendary that just puts it on a 1-minute cooldown. And this is very strong in raid situations, and if you're gonna get, or when you're gonna get the double Legendaries, I really want to test the double Legendaries. With the 2-set bonus, you can straight away see Vision of Unending Growth is probably going to climb in raid situations because Rejuvenation has a chance to create a new Rejuvenation. And that new Rejuvenation presumably has a chance of proccing a 2-set bonus. So 3 procs, more healing, works with mastery, and I feel like if it's going to work like this, again, I haven't fully tested this, but you can see the synergy with both of these straight away in raids in terms of pure HPS bonus that Resto Druid can provide. Now, I'm sure there's going to be more combinations, but this is something that I kind of want to test out first when the 2 legendaries are going to be available. Outside of that, in terms of Mythic Plus, I really kind of thought about this, and again, a lot of people who do run Nightway in Mythic Plus, I really wanted to try out Celestial Spirits with Oath of the Elder Druid and kind of have a DPS Convoke from Feral Affinity or Boomkin Affinity with Heart of the Wild every 1 minute and see what kind of damage it does, but unfortunately I'm not able to test this. Now, in terms of high-end Mythic Plus performance for Resto Druids, if you're playing Resto Druid in Mythic Plus, and I honestly think Resto Druids are slept on in Mythic Plus, I think they're easily top 3 healers in Mythic Plus, high-end key pushing because of the fact they have Kindred Affinity, they have Kindred Spirits, and Kyrian. Kyrian is more commonly referred to as the Simp build because basically with a Legendary, with Kindred Spirits, you're going to empower or bond with a certain DPS in your group, you're going to give them passive stat bonus, and you can empower that stat bonus to double it depending on you're running Mechanicos or not. And this is the most popular build right now. If you look at sub-creation, you can see that 48% of the legendaries in Mythic Plus right now for Resto Druids is going to be using Kindred Affinity. They're running Mechanicos right now, and they're basically running the Simp build that I talked about it. And this is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit because I have personal experience with this. And again, I don't play or push my Resto Druid in Mythic Plus situations, but I do play with a Guardian Druid who recently has swapped to Kindred or Kyrian, and they're using the same kind of bonus. It's the same kind of effect. And all of a sudden, our push group, which usually consists of a Frost Mage, Rogue, and a Warrior, has seen a significant increase in the overall DPS by just running this Covenant. And I feel this is going to just get more popular and popular in the next patch in 9.2. The fact that Resto Druids or healers and tanks in general are viewed as support type of players because they're there to support your DPS. I feel Kyrian is going to climb in popularity. It's already very, very popular. If you have an organized group that you're looking to do really high keys, I think Resto Druid with Kyrian, and then we'll see what other legendary combinations are going to be popular. But this is something that I predict in 9.2 unless something significantly changes. You also have to consider the fact that there's not that many Resto Druid pushing high keys right now versus something like a Resto Shaman, because Resto Druid requires a lot of optimization in terms of getting more damage, getting more healing out, getting more utility out there, because you do have to, for example, go Feral Affinity to provide more DPS, which means you go into melee, but you're still classified as a range, so you get ranged abilities while in melee. On top of the fact that you need to make sure to optimize your Feral Affinity's DPS, put out HOTS, and then track everyone's cooldowns using something like Omni CD add-on, which is very, very mandatory for anyone who's running Kyrian, running that Kindred Affinity, Kindred Spirits build, because you want to do an empowerment when a DPS class uses their strong DPS cooldowns for maximum efficiency, and this kind of combines to a difficult or a hard to master gameplay in Mythic Plus versus something like a Resto Shaman, which just places Vesper Totem and activates 3 DPS and 3 healing abilities to do a bunch of damage. So I do think these factors contribute to the fact that there is less Resto Druids pushing high keys because you have to try harder. But if you do play Resto Druid with Kindred Affinity really, really well, you will see the results in the overall group's damage. So my predictions, my overall impressions of Resto Druid in 9.2 so far, I do think that the 2-set and the 4-set bonus is a really good bonus for raid situations where HPS is going to be significantly increased when you're running Resto Druid. Unfortunately, in Mythic Plus, where there's a lot more emphasis on healer damage, I don't think the 4-set bonus is going to make that big of a difference. I think 2-set bonus is going to be picked up regardless. I do think that Kyrian is going to be a very popular option for Resto Druid pushing really high-end organized content. I'm not saying that you cannot run things like Nightway. I'm not saying you cannot run things like Necrolord for your personal gain and things like that. I think there's still very fun options, but in a really organized content, I do think, like I mentioned, you should get Kyrian ready to go if you're looking to get that rank 1 title and things like that in the next season. In raids, again, a lot of people are talking about Nightway. Nightway has always been a very, very strong contender with the fact that you have your Celestial Spirits or your Nightway Covenant specific legendary. So I'm relatively excited for Resto Druid. I know there's problems with Druid in general in terms of having a stronger niche both in raids and Mythic Plus, but I do think Kyrian kind of saves Druid in Mythic Plus. In raids, we'll have to see how the HPS is going to compare to other healers. I know Resto Druids don't have damage reduction. I know Resto Druids cannot really do passive DPS without sacrificing healing, so there's still issues. But I think there is something to be excited about the tier set bonus, especially when you compare it to the old version of the tier set bonus, which was just honestly really kind of bad. So let me know how you feel about this video. If you like this, like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more healer testing, and I'll see you in my next guide.